अस्सलाम वालेकुम ख़ातिन हज़रात, मैं हूँ इसरार कसाना। ख़ातिन हज़रात, ज़िंदगी में कई दफ़ा मुश्किलात आती हैं। हमारा जो रिएक्शन हुआ करता है वो सबसे ज़्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट होता है। कभी भी कब कोई मुश्किल आ जाए तो हम रिएक्ट कैसे करते हैं, ये असल में क्वेश्चन होता है, और जिसकी बुनियाद के ऊपर फिर आपका जो एक ज़िंदगी का पैटर्न है वो डिसाइड होता है कि आप कैसे रहेंगे, किस तरीके से आप गुज़ारा करेंगे, सब कुछ। ज़िंदगी में कई दफ़ा जब मुश्किलात आती हैं तो हम लोग बिल्कुल गिव अप कर जाते हैं। कुछ लोग होते हैं जो गिव अप नहीं करते हैं, और वो वही लोग जो हैं वो फिर लीडर्स बनते हैं, वही फिर अपनी ज़िंदगी का एक ऐसा पैटर्न सेट करते हैं जो कि बाकी लोगों के लिए भी एक एग्ज़ाम्पल बन जाता है। आज मैं बहुत एक्साइटेड हूँ। आज मैंने आपकी एक मुलाकात एक ऐसी शख्सियत के साथ करवानी है जो कि एक इंस्पिरेशनल स्टोरी है, जिनका बैकग्राउंड फ़ौज के साथ है, लेकिन उनकी ज़िंदगी का जो एक पूरा पैटर्न है, वो एक रेज़िलियंस की स्टोरी है। उन्होंने गिव अप नहीं किया। उनकी स्टोरी क्या है, इसका मैं आपके साथ ज़रा अभी शेयर करता हूँ। और हमें जॉइन कर रहे हैं हांगकांग से जनाब अजमल सैमुअल साहब। अजमल साहब, अस्सलाम वालेकुम जी, गुड मॉर्निंग।
वालेकुम अस्सलाम, गुड मॉर्निंग फ्रॉम हांगकांग
अ,
एज वेल।
अजमल साहब, मैंने जिस तरह कहा कि एक इंस्पिरेशनल स्टोरी है आपकी, अगरचे बड़ी ही दर्दनाक है शुरू से, जब आपने एक ज़िंदगी का एक टर्न आया आपकी ज़िंदगी में, और वो बहुत ही दर्दनाक होगा ऑब्वियसली। मुझे सबसे पहले तो वो ज़रा बताएं कि फ़ौज में आप गए, और फिर फ़ौज के बाद जब ये आपकी ज़िंदगी का जो टर्निंग पॉइंट आया, वो क्या था और किस तरीके से आया?
Sure ji. What I'll do is I'll start a little bit from my time when I started my journey in the army, okay? And I'll explain, और उससे मैं लेके आगे जाऊंगा कि किस तरह मेरी लाइफ इवॉल्व हुई और चेंज हुई आगे जाने। तो 1981 में, of course, as a young kid growing up in Multan, I'm from Multan originally, growing up in Multan and living in the cantonment, so I was very infatuated by the armed forces.
तो आपके पेरेंट्स थे फौज में?
नहीं, मेरे फादर जो थे, he was a bishop of Multan, and he was,
अच्छा।
the cathedral was right in the middle of the cantonment.
कैंटोनमेंट, हाँ। मैं भी चूंकि मुल्तान से हूँ तो मुझे पता है उसका, मैंने देखा है वो।
So that is the reason. So I was surrounded by the armed forces, and there are many other reasons also. So I was like really infatuated कि भाई मैंने armed forces में जाना है. And then I applied, and I eventually ended up going to PMA. I was selected and went to PMA. Was typical the dreams होती हैं एक young person की कि we want to do this, we want to have these challenges and that challenges within the armed forces. I achieved all of that. I did that, passed out with, went to JCB. At that time, there was JCB also, a Junior Cadet Battalion, and then went to PMA, and passed out with 73rd Long Course in 1986. Okay, and that is the time, actually, my whole career started, and I was all really driven. This is something for the rest of my life. I'm going to be working and hard on this, and I'm going to be making something, a success story out of it. Again, I didn't know what's going to happen within a year. So I was posted in Kotli for my infantry course. At that time, the infantry course, I went to Corps of Signals. Yeah. Infantry course as a young lieutenant was happening in Kotli. And coming back on a holiday, I had a really bad accident. And basically my vehicle fell into the ravine. The driver died, and I ended up having a spinal injury. Basically, and that time, having a spinal injury, I'm talking about 1987, when Pakistan, the medical sector of Pakistan was still under development. So immediately you get some rescue done, and immediately you get some treatment done, so you'll be okay. I was taken to Rawalpindi CMH, और वहाँ पे I was there for almost, literally almost 2-3 months or so. And of course, my father was really worried कि क्या होएगा मेरे साथ, और and luckily, you know, I had just come out of the academy, and because I had just come out of the academy, we are all prepared that we have to give our life for the country. Okay, so you are mentally, you're prepared that something will happen, something adverse will happen. But I tell you, nobody prepared me to have a spinal injury. I was willing to give my life, but not to lose half of my body. That's very important So, and that sort of changed the whole perspective. The first 2 years, first year or so when I was in recovering, I still didn't figure out the extent of the issues at hand, that my life is going to be reset and start over again. Eventually, वहाँ पे रावलपिंडी में CMH में there was not much treatment happening for me, and then I was sent to. My father took me to UK in Stoke Mandeville, and I stayed there for almost 2 years through rehabilitation and a lot of surgeries, etc., to get me back that I could sit. I couldn't sit in the back after my accident. So that was a story when, and that also the time of really dark times for me at the end, because it happened once you realize that you are going through so much, you've gone through so much change at a very young age, then things start setting in. And also another very important thing which happened, which when we talk more, I'll explain a little bit more on it, is the component of not only a psychological and physical change in the body, but also I started having very severe chronic pain in my legs. That was after. And that was the after effect. ये था क्योंकि वो spinal injury की वजह से there was some injury in my spine, in my cord, and जो कि अभी तक आज तक है मेरे पास. It gave me very severe chronic pain to the point that I would be sitting and talking to people and I'll pass out. Okay. Oh my God. So anytime I'll just pass out because the pain was so intense. So the doctors put me on a lot of medication, including opioids. And I was taking a lot of high doses of opioids. That is basically you can say, the introduction to the new life, which I had to adopt and I had to take on. Okay, that is how I started off. And basically, instead of starting my military career, I started something new, which was how to learn to be different and how to be, that's how things started for me. Lekin, of course, too young, at a very young age, I had done I saw you just showed the pictures of my MCS, Military College Signals, some courses in the armed forces also. Lekin, that is something which still doesn't prepare you for the rest of your life. Yeah? So I started, and remember it is 1987, 88. So I started applying for various positions in, or openings in universities, and the first university which actually responded was the University of Düsseldorf in Germany. At that time I was in UK. So वहाँ पे फिर I went over in Germany and I started doing some courses and equip myself to make sure that actually I can, in computer sciences, get a job and get a career and move on with life. So that is how I the first, you can say the first triangulation, the first wearing into real life, figuring out like how I can, that was in Germany. Or वहाँ पे, it just so happened that I got in the job side after I finished my education, I got internship with the organization called Kindernothilfe, which is Help the Children Fund, essentially. And for that, I was appointed in Pakistan, looking after the programs in Pakistan. And I think I did a good job. I was there for almost 2-3 years in Pakistan after my injury, and I started streamlining the projects, etc. And eventually, I had some fundamental issues with how the fundraising is done and how the money goes to the recipients, and that's why I left. I left at that time. At that time, my father was posted in Hong Kong. So मैंने decide किया कि why don't I come to Hong Kong and visit them for a short break and take some time out, and that's how I came to Hong Kong. And
ये कौन से सन की बात है, किस ईयर की बात है?
ये 1991 की बात है जब मैं हांगकांग आया.
अच्छा, ठीक. तो आपने अजमल साहब, आपने जो इंस्पिरेशन ली वो जर्मनी से ज्यादा आपको मिली या बाद में आपको इंस्पिरेशन मिली ज्यादा कि मैंने गिव अप नहीं करना?
एक्चुअली एक स्टोरी मैं ऐड करना चाहता हूँ, गोइंग बैक टू जर्मनी. जब मैं गोइंग टू जर्मनी एंड गोइंग टू यूके, जब मैं हॉस्पिटल में था वहाँ पे यूके में स्पेशली, वहाँ पे मेरा जो surgeon था, you won't believe it, and this is 1987, long time ago. The particular surgeon, he himself was in a wheelchair. And he was the guy, yes, he was one of the top specialists, spinal injury specialists back in 1980s. And he was old guy, about to retire also. And this guy is the one who really provided me immense amount of motivation. If he can do all of this stuff, he can become a medical doctor at that time. You know, now the facilities are much better. That time he has to struggle a lot. And he is the top of the pyramid and doing his things. And वो हम जो वहाँ पे हम हॉस्पिटल में वार्ड में थे, हमें भी नहीं वो चैन लेने देता था और हमारे पास कोई एक्सक्यूज भी नहीं थी क्योंकि यार हमारा सर्जन जो है is coming back and forth in a wheelchair and he's making sure that we do all our things. And that was something, I think it was a tipping point for me also. Okay, if this guy can do all of this stuff, then for me, life is fairly straightforward and simple. Yeah. And then there are two inspirations. One is this, and there's another one which comes later on, how things changed for me. So, जब मैं Hong Kong आया हूँ, तो मुझे नहीं पता था कि Hong Kong. Of course, I came to Hong Kong. I fell in love with Hong Kong. Hong Kong is a very dynamic place. It's like in the US, New York, and all that. It's New York, you come here, yeah, it's full of life, very vibrant. Things are happening and all that. And again, remember, it is 1991, okay, and 92, 91. Things for me from the outside, मैं देखता हूँ जब पूरे इसको scene को, it looks very good. लेकिन the minute I put myself, of course, I thought I'm going to settle in Hong Kong. I'm going to stay in Hong Kong, at least try my hand in Hong Kong. It's a very nice place. Lekin, what I discovered, I was extremely ill-equipped to be in Hong Kong. Okay, because first of all, my Pakistani background, my skin color, these are all the prejudices which play out. And then, of course, me being in a wheelchair. So these three things put together, really, all the doors were shut. And nobody would even talk to me. जब मैं apply करता हूँ jobs को, and you will not believe I applied for thousands of jobs just to try to get to somewhere, to get a simple job entry. I would be asked for interviews, and I would sit in the interviews, and the guy who would interview me, he would say, very good, your experience is excellent, but unfortunately we cannot hire you. Okay, so because you don't tick a few boxes, so we are not going to hire you. So this was itself, it can be a bit of a
क्या आप समझते हैं कि आपकी disability जो थी वो main reason थी या कुछ racist कुछ लोग थे इस तरह का कुछ problem?
Both components.
अच्छा, both.
Yeah. Because I remember Hong Kong in that time is the British colony for the Chinese. So combination of British colony and Chinese city, it's not a very friendly place for people who are not from here that time. Okay, although remember Hong Kong is built on an immigrant community, so yeah, but at the same time the same immigrant community is extremely prejudicial towards new entrants who are coming to Hong Kong. And so when I started, but at the same time, when getting to jobs, going through jobs, the first company which offered me a job was Pacific Rim Systems. Yeah. After about 2 years of applying for jobs, lucky because my parents were living here, so I didn't have extra burden to live in Hong Kong. So after 2 years, I got a job, and the job itself, what I got was very interesting because it was just to fix computers, a simple technician. Okay, I was overqualified. I was over Germany से मेरे पास degree थी, Pakistan Army का मैं officer और वहाँ पे courses किए हुए थे. So how come I can just get in with being a technician at the bottom of at the bottom? Lekin I took it. I thought this is a good entry point for me to get in there.
It's an opening at least. At
least an opening. So get inside the workforce. And literally within 1 year, I was actually running that department, which I was hired. So things started moving very rapidly for me because people then discovered, yeah, this guy is not just worth what he has been hired. He can perform and he can come up. And within 2 years' time, I was headhunted by a Silicon Valley company on a very specialized task to develop some specialized stuff for them. And that's where I started getting to work with some top professionals from the world, literally the top guys in the R&D areas in the world. And that time, again, this was one stepping point. And then it just so happened I got offer from another company called Revenco. And Revenco is one of the big giants. I didn't know that time. But one of the big giants, I was new to Hong Kong. I didn't know the extent of the things which are going on. So I got an offer from Revenco and I started working for Revenco. And I was traveling a lot to China and Hong Kong. And while working for Revenco, one day I got a call that the big boss wants to see you after about 1.5 years. He's a billionaire, one of the big billionaires in this part of the world. He wants to see you. So I went. I was like, okay, this is, now I know the company. It's like 6,000-7,000 people working in the company. So I went and had lunch with me. He wanted to have lunch with me. And that's another story here, which the reason why that guy is still a very good friend of mine. So I went in, I was escorted by his other guys who looked after his interests. And the minute, he never knew that Ajmal Samuel is in a wheelchair. He never realized. So when I went into his dining hall in his office, he got a shock. And he looked at me and he asked me, Ajmal, what can I do for you? How can I help you? So मैंने उसको जवाब दिया कि his name is Lawrence Tang. Lawrence, I work for you. You tell me how I can help you. Not me, you help me. It's the other way around. I'm here to work for you. And he was quiet. He didn't know what to say. For the whole lunch, he sat there and he was literally lost because usko aisi baat kisi ne kabhi kahi nahi thi ke tu mera boss hai, main to employee hu, you tell me what is this is the relationship. Why are you asking me? Just because I'm in a wheelchair, you don't ask me how you can help me or not. Anyway, things took different turns, and eventually one of his companies in Hong Kong called CityLine, it was not doing very well in Hong Kong, and he was wanting to shut it down. So मुझे उसने बुलाया, फिर से मुझे कहा कि यार तुम बहुत बड़ी बनते हो चीज, you are doing very well, तो अब मुझे दिखाओ, ये कंपनी है मेरी
Turn it around.
Turn it around, दिखाओ कि क्या किस तरह कितना को तुम में दम है कि तुम इसको turn around कर सकते हो. मैंने कहा, I took the challenge, and actually this job was offered to 3 people, a Norwegian guy, Canadian guy, and a Pakistani. Three people were offered this job. Okay.
Achha.
3 people who were part of his, they were working for him. And all 3 of us sat together. And of course, the 2 of them said, impossible, I'm not working for you for this, because this is going to fail and my career is going to go down. Eventually, I said, okay, guys, I'll take up the challenge. You are not going to take up, I'm going to take up the challenge. I went in, it was hard, difficult going, but eventually,
obviously.
Yes, especially in the different culture, people, and you are trying to assert yourself, change things around. So finally, I did turn the company around into one of the big powerhouses, actually, of this part of the world. And some of the projects which I took on for this company, I can share some of the projects here with you.
क्या आपने क्या डिफरेंट क्या किया आपने जो पहले जो हो रहा था उससे आपने डिफरेंट क्या किया?
I had to change the whole business model of the company. पहले जो company थी, it was more in brand. It had a brand and it wanted to assert its brand out there. So what I did was I took the company and I changed it into a back office technology company. So actually इस वक्त भी अगर आप हांगकांग में काफी लोगों से पूछें कि CityLine क्या करती है, till today they will not know. Because I changed it completely from a consumer brand to a B2B business, completely. And actually, so one of the big wins was running the infrastructure for Hong Kong government for ticketing. That was massive. Okay, so that was one of the things which I did. So suddenly it became a vendor to Hong Kong government. And the next win was Hong Kong Disneyland was coming in at that time. And I bid on it and I won it. And then the whole infrastructure for Hong Kong Disneyland's ticketing and everything in Hong Kong is also built and run by this company. And then suddenly the domino effect started, and then we built for US cinemas. We built, we did a joint venture with the central government in China to build these ticketing systems for different cinemas in all over China. Even my last big project was building the infrastructure for Asian Games in Guangzhou. And that was a massive project. Yeah, that was a massive project. And that is a time.
अच्छा, ये गेम्स का भी मैंने आपसे पूछना है. आप गेम्स में भी बड़े इन हो गए हैं, और एक तरफ जो था वो आपने बताया कि आपको ड्रग्स दी जा रही थी, ओपियोइड वगैरह दिए जा रहे थे, और वो तो उसमें जाहिर है कि सेडेटिव्स वगैरह भी होते हैं, सब कुछ होता है. तो उसमें से आप निकले कैसे बाहर, और फिर आपने ये फिजिकल एक्टिविटी की तरफ कैसे आपका ख्याल है?
So that is something. Actually, this is the City Line is the time when everything changed. Okay, so City Line में मैं काफी सारे projects and negotiations with very high end companies, for example, Hong Kong government, with Disney, with Chinese government, on a government level. I was doing these negotiations. I was feeling, although I was still on medication, but I was feeling I'm not top of the game. I have a little lag in my brain, which, although I was doing okay, but I just felt that I'm not top of the game, and these guys are going to take advantage of me one day. I have to do something with it. And I started reading up a lot, and eventually, of course, I knew that I was taking huge amounts of opioids. I'll give you the number. I was taking about 1,500 milligrams of opium every day, of opioids every day, morphine every day. Okay. Which is actually, which is okay to, it's good enough to kill a horse if you give so much of these.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Like I was still doing okay with my career. I was getting on with life and all that. Like I was feeling I'm getting a little dull in my thinking. And that is the time I decided, I did a lot of research and I decided, okay, I have to get off all this medication. Okay. And
you just quit it.
There was several options. I went to my pain doctors. Unse maine baat ki. Pain doctors were like, you cannot quit it because you've been taking for so long. Agar aapne stop kiya abhi, then you will have a heart attack or some stroke or something like that. Like in me being
gradual withdrawal.
Yeah, like in me being me at that time, I said no going. I just fine day, I did all the preparation, and one fine day I did cold turkey, completely stopped everything. It was painful. It took me almost a month to get back to normal life. But interestingly, I'll tell you that I never stopped going to the office. I was still going to the office. I was still discharging my duties in the office properly. Nobody knew that I was going through this whole withdrawal right at that time. But I did. I completely got off. But at the same time, you asked me about sports. That is the time I started learning and researching online. Okay, the replacement for morphine. What is the replacement for morphine? So that was endorphins. Our body produces endorphins. Okay, and how do endorphins come out? Endorphins come out from extensive sports or physical activity. So I started every day I would go out. There was a certain track about 4 kilometers. I would, on my wheelchair, I would go up and down, up and down, up and down, okay? Sweating out completely. This one, the picture you're showing right now is in a professional, proper sporting wheelchair. But that time I was doing in a normal wheelchair. Just imagine. In a normal wheelchair. Just to get myself back into fitness. And slowly, I got to the point that I was actually fit, and I invested in some of the very high-end equipment and all of that for racing wheelchairs and handbike. And I started taking part in marathons and triathlons, Ironmans, these type of things. And then slowly, what happening? I think up till now, my story would tell you I'm a competitive guy. Okay? So once I take on something, I will go try to take it to the maximum. So यहाँ पे आप तस्वीर में देखें, I'm the only one right in the front in a wheelchair.
Yeah, बिल्कुल.
So actually, one of the things which I'm also quite known in Hong Kong, actually all over the world, for activism, sports activism. So in Hong Kong, the marathons would not allow a disabled person to take part. And I lobbied for a long, long time to actually allow marathons and other sports, local endurance sports, and I won at the end of the day. And I became one of the first athletes to be participating in marathons and triathlons in Hong Kong. So that's how my story started with on the sports side. Again, as I mentioned, I'm competitive. I didn't stop there. I started competing professionally on hand cycling and also triathlons. In 2009, I was ranked #1 in Asia on the triathlon side. And then the journey actually took on interesting turn. One would never realize that I'm from Multan and I'm doing rowing also. So I was asked to, in the interim before I started rowing, I was really wanting to do something different like scuba diving. Okay. So I reached out to some friends in Hong Kong, and there was a special program, and I participated in that program. And there's a special program for disabled people and a special program, of course, normal program for able-bodied people. So I went in and I told the guys, I'm not going to take on the program for disabled people. I want the program for the able-bodied. He said, it's impossible, you'll qualify. It's impossible because some of the requirements for the able-bodied scuba diving, you cannot fulfill. I said, okay, we'll see. So I went and I did the tests and all that, the whole program, and I passed. I actually became one of the first disabled scuba divers who is qualified as a normal scuba diver. Yeah, and eventually I got my deep sea scuba diving as well. And that was a turning point. So when I started knowing that community of divers and all that, they invited me one time to do dragon boat racing. And I didn't know anything about dragon boat racing. Lekin main chala gaya, maine kaha, theek hai, Hong Kong event, I should take part in dragon boat racing. And I took part and with the team. But that was the time there was a coach, a rowing coach, who spotted me and said, look, you have the aptitude of becoming an athlete for rowing, single scull rowing, and I would like you to come and sit in a test for single scull rowing. And I went and I passed the test, and that was the time they assigned me a national coach, and I came on the national Hong Kong team for single scull rowing. And that took on another journey for me. And I started professionally, I started rowing for Hong Kong. I still do. And I picked up a lot of medals for Hong Kong, including gold medals. I took part in Asian Games. I took part in World Championships. I've taken part in European Championships, Asian Championships, and most of the championships where I took part, I have podium finishes, either silver, bronze, or gold. And I think what you're showing right now, I have a whole collection of medals from various events all over the place. So that was my sports side, but the sports side on the professional side, ये professional aspect थी. Lekin slowly I discovered that actually what I have achieved on my sports and in my life and also on my career side, it's time to give back to the society. Okay. And that is the time I started doing things like biking from Beijing to Mohe. Mohe is the Russian border with China. Like 2,500 kilometers of biking, okay, in 37 days.
2,500 kilometers.
Yeah, I did it to raise money for the disabled and awareness for the children and for disabled athletes. Okay,
incredible.
I did it last year, and then I did it this year. Actually, I had planned to bike from Kashgar to Karachi, and and I had planned that I would be doing programs in Pakistan and awareness and raising the profile of the disabled community in Pakistan to give them more opportunities. Yeah, Kashgar to Karachi, that is what I was planning. Like in COVID ki wajah se, the whole plan has been just dismantled. Like I still plan, okay, I'm going to do this in 2021. Next year, August, May, I'll plan. I hope COVID gets better and I can do this. So these are some of the ventures, and at the same time, I took on some expeditions also, some extreme adventures also. Yahan pe Hong Kong mein, it's one of the most killer races. this is going around Hong Kong Island, and it is done because it's on the open sea. So the waves are almost like 6-7 meters waves, so which we have to negotiate. It's really tough, and you can capsize very easily. So
Sure.
and nobody had ever done there had never been in the whole history of the race that anybody actually, not only in Hong Kong, globally, these type of races, that anybody had taken part in as a disabled person. So I pushed for it and I took part, and I set a new record 2 times, one as a team and once with 2 people. I invited one of the Lithuanian para rowers, again a disabled guy, to come to Hong Kong, and हम दोनों ने इसमें participate किया, and we set a new record as well to row around Hong Kong as the first only disabled team. Both of us were disabled, and so we were tied to the boat. And I think what you have one picture of me doing that, tied to the boat and on the high sea, going up, the 2 guys, and that is something incredible. And I completed it. It took us 7 hours to complete, non-stop rowing for 7 hours. Yeah, this one. So you can see the waves here. So it's a tough job, but we finished. Incredible. Yeah, and again, I wouldn't have realized, being a guy from Multan, I would be rowing in the sea and competing in the sea as well.
Multan को आप इतना underestimate तो ना करें.
नहीं, मैं underestimate नहीं करता. मैं तो कहता हूँ कि Multan से, me being from Multan, it proves something about. Yeah, Multan में ताकत है बिल्कुल. So this is actually my journey, and I do a lot of other things also, just as I said, giving back to the society, trying to help raise awareness. This is one of my big things, raising awareness for disabled people.
पाकिस्तान का चक्कर लगता रहता है आपका?
जी, पाकिस्तान में मैं आता रहता हूँ. Actually, about 4 years ago, I set up a business in Pakistan also. तो उसके लिए मैं आता रहता, लेकिन अभी कोविड की वजह से it's been a long time कि मैंने पाकिस्तान विजिट नहीं किया. लेकिन
अच्छा, अर्जुन साहब मुझे ये बताएं कि what keeps you moving? मतलब एक होती है ना इंस्पिरेशन, बंदा कहाँ से लेता है? कुछ लोग होते हैं, कुछ अपने अंदर भी कुछ होती है. कोई ऐसी चीज जो आपको मतलब ड्राइव करती है, वो क्या है?
I think it is the drive for something better. The way I say it is very simple. Okay, लेकिन once you start dissecting the whole thing, क्योंकि if you look at my life, I have gone through a lot of hardships, and I actually go through a lot of hardships on a daily basis. Okay, just for simple stuff, for a guy like you or any average guy, just to get up from your chair and to pick up something across the table or across simple stuff, you will not even notice. Like, for me, it's a task. Okay, for me to do something, it's a task, and I'm very independent, so I do not ask anybody. I'll do it myself. So those type of things, when you go through this and you let that take over, become part of you, and you do not let that defeat you, then it is about, okay, what else can I do which is better? And of course, you reach to a point in life where you have achieved all of this stuff, and then you say, okay, now the things which I need to be aiming for have to be much bigger. They are not picking up the thing across the table or being able to go out and do or lead my own life on my own. But it has to be something much bigger, and that is where what starts driving you. In the next, that's my phase of my life right now. It really starts driving you. कि हाँ भाई, अब मैंने उस चीज के even things which are better and better, वो मैंने pursue करनी है. So that, I think this is, in a simplistic way, this is the way to explain. Lekin of course it has very deep meanings around it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Family आपके साथ है वहाँ पे जी? आपकी family, आपके parents?
In about 5 years ago, I got married in Hong Kong. So me and my wife, we are in Hong Kong. So, and of course, my other family members, also my mother, she lives with me. So I am everything is all settled, and I'm happy person. And
बच्चे भी हैं आपके?
नहीं, अभी नहीं. I have not. I think at this age, for me, I still think twice. Because I have got so much happening in my life from business point of view, from sports point of view. I'll tell you, every morning, मेरी training routine होती है. Every morning I wake up at about 4:30, and I'm out on the road at about 5:30, 6 o'clock. And when I come home, I've already done 55 kilometers, okay, of biking every morning. और मेरा target होता है कि every month I have to do 1,000 kilometers is my target every month. So that
every
is
month.
So to get to that point where you are pushing yourself every month, I do 1,000 kilometers. So minimum 1,000 kilometers. So this is the target, and और उसके साथ when you come back home, then you start working. So all of these things put together, you hardly get time for. You start thinking, yeah, we are up.
वैसे
पता है क्या, मैं
it's limited. आपकी बातें सुन के तो मुझे जो एबल बॉडीड लोग हैं उनके ऊपर भी थोड़ा सा अफसोस हो रहा है कि जितना आप माशाल्लाह फिजिकली एक्सर्ट कर रहे हैं, जितना आप काम करते हैं, ये तो एबल बॉडीड लोग जो हैं वो भी नहीं कर रहे हैं. हैट्स ऑफ टू यू. Hats off to you.
Thank you. It's a fact, actually. And I tell a lot of able-bodied people also. Actually, I have a lot of friends who have changed their lifestyles completely because they look at me. And some very close friends who, तू किस चक्कर में पड़ा हुआ है? जब मैं उनको बताता हूँ details of क्या कर रहा हूँ, ये फौजियों की बात कर रहा हूँ कि मेरा universe जो है, it's a lot to do with the army. यार हम तो फौज में थे और फिट थे, तू अभी भी फिट. Then they get back and they start working out and become fit again. So it's changed a lot.
कोई ऐसा मोमेंट अजमल साहब जहाँ पे आपने सोचा हो कि गिव अप किया जाए, अब मेरे से नहीं हो रहा?
Of course.
कोई ऐसा मोमेंट कभी आया?
Yeah, बिल्कुल. The time when जब मैं रिकवर कर रहा था यूके में, और जब मेरी पेन और all these things put together, of course I gave up. It was not I think about giving up, I gave up because it was just too much. At a very young age, you're only 23 or 24 years old, or the life has thrown something at you which you cannot even, and at that age you can't really articulate things so clearly. So I gave up. I said, this is enough. I can't take all of this stuff.
I cannot make it.
Yeah. It's just too much. At that age, too much. Then you start thinking. Actually, many people also ask me this injury and what's a major turning point. I think that was a major turning point for me, other than when I gave up my medication. Because that's the time I discovered that, okay, I have to do something with my life.
तो ये कितना important है strength of your mind. आपकी जो सोच है वो आपकी बातों से मुझे लग रहा है कि सबसे बड़ा फैक्टर ही ये है कि आपकी जो सोच है वो कितनी स्ट्रांग है.
एक्चुअली मेरे अपने, इन माय ओपिनियन, ओके, मेरी अपनी ओपिनियन में, योर मेंटल एप्टीट्यूड एंड मेंटल स्ट्रेंथ कैन डू एनीथिंग. जो मैं 1000 किलोमीटर करता हूँ हर महीने, it is not because of my physical strength. It is because of my mental strength that is why I can do it. Otherwise, I can't do it. This is some perseverance and mental ability to take it further. That is what pushes me, rather than my physical strength. After a few hours, after one, you're done, exertion-wise. But that is what carries you. And actually, another thing which I want to mention here, that physical fitness and mental fitness, they go hand in hand. Okay, so the more physically fit you will be, you will discover the more mentally fit you. So, and this is something which I think is a message for people. People need to learn. I have learned it the hard way. Being on medications, I was not physically fit at all, and that's why I think there was a decay happening in my mind. So, जब आप physical fitness की तरफ जाते हैं, तो आप देखते हैं कि आप your mind will open up. You will see things very differently. So that is, that's I think is very important.
नहीं, ये बड़ा अच्छा मैसेज दिया आपने, और अल्लाह ताला आपको कामयाब करे. विश यू गॉड स्पीड. और जो आपने मैसेज दिया है वो यही है कि गिव अप नहीं करना. और ख़वातीन हज़रात, हमारी सब की जिंदगियों में मुश्किल वक्त आता है, लेकिन वही जैसे मैंने शुरू में कहा था कि रिएक्शन आपका जो है वो डिटर्मिन करता है कि आप उसके आगे किस तरह लेट जाते हैं या आप उसके आगे खड़े हो जाते हैं. तो अजमल साहब की जो स्टोरी है वो यही है कि गिव अप नहीं करना, रेजिलियंस शो करनी है. और इसी मैसेज के ऊपर आज का प्रोग्राम खत्म करते हैं. अजमल साहब, आपका बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया वंस अगेन. थैंक यू फॉर कमिंग, और अल्लाह ताला आपके कामयाब करे, आपके पूरे प्रोजेक्ट्स में आपको कामयाबी हो, और आपकी सेहत भी ठीक हो, और आपकी फैमिली भी ठीक रहे, आफियत में रहे। आपका बहुत शुक्रिया।
थैंक यू वेरी मच, थैंक्स अ लॉट।
बहुत शुक्रिया, और मैं आपसे इंशाल्लाह कोशिश करूंगा कि हम एक और शो भी करेंगे जिसमें आपका जो बिजनेस मॉडल है उसको भी जरा डिस्कस करने की कोशिश करेंगे। आखिर में दुआ कि मेरी इज्जत के लिए काफी है कि मैं तेरा ही बंदा हूँ, मेरे फख्र के लिए काफी है कि तू ही मेरा परवरदिगार। तो बिल्कुल उसी तरह जिस तरह मैं चाहता हूँ, मुझे भी उसी तरह बना दे जिस तरह तू चाहता है। खेचरा तू दानी हिसाब कमो बेचरा। मुझे इसरार कसाना को इजाजत दीजिए, जल्दी मुलाकात होगी इंशाल्लाह। अल्लाह हाफ़िज़।